Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning to the show.
And welcome, as always. Send in your questions. We will post them. We will try to answer them all. Let us know where you're from, of course, your name, all of that. And the picture behind us, by the way, as one of our traditions here in the morning shows, is we always pick an interesting picture that has been taken over the years. This one was done with a Canon 6D with a fisheye lens. That's why you have some of that distortion and that bending in the buildings. They're actually pretty straight. It's not like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. This is in Tempe, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix, near ASU actually, and called the Tempe Lakes. And once they put an artificial lake there, developers came in and put some really cool commercial buildings up. So that's what we're seeing here. That light pole actually is bent. It's not my lens distorting it, but the buildings are straight. So we thought we'd use that as our background this morning. We have a news item here. There's a lot of talk about why Elon chose Mexico, for this latest Gigafactory. And some feel that he's trying to avoid regulations, and my comment to that is bingo.
Of course.
Look what happened in Germany. They're still fooling around with trying to decide whether to allow them to put in covered parking and sink the posts to support the covered parking for groundwater contamination issues or whatever. Mexico is going to be a lot more lenient, and they're going to allow them to get that factory up and running as fast as possible. And I think in an earlier podcast, we talked about the fact that this is scheduled to be the largest Tesla factory, right?
Yes, it is. It's scheduled to be the very largest of the Tesla factories when it's all done.
Which is amazing because we thought Giga, Texas was huge and massive, but I don't know if those, if you've ever worked in a large factory like this. I did for a while, 35, 40 years ago, no, 40, oh my God, 40 years ago. I'm dating myself here. But when you're in these large factories, it takes you 20 minutes to half an hour to get from one end to the other. It's pretty daunting. Some of these places allow things like golf carts and bicycles. They never did skateboards. I think there's a safety issue there.
Well, probably is. Yeah, probably is.
But anyway, the Elon's relationship with Mexico goes back some time, and an interesting story for you here. When Tesla was still trying to survive, before they had the Model S, they were still working on the Roadster, and they were looking for funding from a number of different places. On the verge of bankruptcy, of course. Legend has it that at one point Elon and team decided, why don't we electrify the German Mercedes smart car?
Okay.
And maybe it will attract some Daimler investment if we do this. The problem was you couldn't buy a smart car in the U.S. because we have such strict regulations regarding motor vehicles, and
Sure.
NHTSA was involved, and at that time they weren't able to sell the smart car in the U.S. for them to get one to modify it or to convert it to EV. So this is the legend part. Now, Elon reportedly gives one of the technicians a fistful of cash, sends him down to Mexico City to buy a smart car and drive it back up here. So it worked. They got it back up here. They took out the ICE engine. They put in the equivalent of the Tesla Roadster drivetrain, and they now had this electrified smart car. And if you think about it, this was the car back in that day that really lent itself well to an electric vehicle. It was small wheels, it was a roundabout or round town type car. So the rest of the story goes something like this. Apparently Daimler sent a contingent of engineers here to the United States for some sort of training, and Tesla was able to talk them into coming to visit them and see what sorts of things they were doing. They had not told them yet about electrifying the smart car.
Oh, okay.
So the engineers got out here. They had their show or whatever in Chicago, and then eventually migrated out to California to Tesla. And being at a trade show, they were a bit hungover the morning they arrived at Tesla, and they tried to put them in a conference room to talk to them about the electrification possibilities for their cars, especially the smart car. And apparently, during the presentation, the Germans were falling asleep. And so Elon at one point noticed this was occurring. He said, okay, forget this PowerPoint presentation. We're going to take you out in the lab area and show you something. So they took him out, they showed him this electrified smart car. They handed them the keys, and these guys went out in a parking lot and started doing wheelies. And it was so significant that when they went back to Germany, apparently there was now some cash available to invest in Tesla, and apparently Mercedes or Daimler took a stake in Tesla at that point based on this smart car experience. So going back to my original story here, it looks like Elon's relationship with Mexico goes back a ways, even to the Roadster days.
Wow, it sure does. And you know, Mexico is so logical for so many reasons. First, it's only about 7-hour drive from the Austin headquarters down to where the plant in Mexico is going to be. And I know that there are border crossings down in that area where if you're driving a Tesla Model S, you get a special lane, so you don't have any wait or anything.
Right.
That tells you a little bit about the relationship that Mexico already has with Tesla. I found out that Mexico is Tesla's largest parts supplier for their cars right now. And the area where they're going to be building their Gigafactory is in with all of these suppliers. So that makes extreme logical sense.
Yeah.
And in fact, Mexico is the leading parts supplier to the United States for all automobiles.
Amazing.
As of right now. So it's not like they're going out into the desert or doing something like that. They're going to an area that's a real hotbed of automotive manufacturing.
Now, there's something else you mentioned in the last podcast that they are also, since Mexico is part of NAFTA, there are some financial incentives in that certain credits will extend to vehicles that are made in Mexico.
Oh yes, absolutely, because the EV credits that were announced here for 2023 are going to have a requirement that says a certain number or percentage of the parts for the car have to be made in America.
Mm-hmm. North America.
And made in America means North America, which means Canada, Mexico, or the United States. So this helps to ensure that Tesla will be able to keep its cars eligible for the $7,500 EV credit.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lower cost labor pool available there as well.
Oh, by all means.
And I understand that the border crossing going down to Monterrey or Nuevo León actually has now a special lane for the construction activity. So at customs or at the border crossing, they don't have to wait. They just shoot right through this lane if they're affiliated with the Tesla construction project.
That's exactly right. And that's in the Nuevo León area is where they have the special Model S lane as well.
Cool. All right. Looks like we got a TikTok question from Hot Rail Rose. Welcome back. Rio Hondo College in Whittier offers Tesla training for students who want to go to work for Tesla. Really? Okay, well, that's great news. It looks like there's some training and education available, and Tesla definitely would benefit from that. They're always looking for additional labor and growing rapidly.
That is actually really incredible. And you know, we'll note that down and start looking for people that have Rio Hondo College on their resumes when we go looking for people for us.
Exactly, yes.
YouTube, Thomas Curtis. He has a Kia Ora from New Zealand. Welcome, you, Thomas. Glad to have you come join us.
Yeah, New Zealand. That's a bit away.
So, Mark, the Kia Ora is actually hello in his native language. He came by, I think he came by a few weeks ago and
we thought it was a car.
And we're like, yeah, that sounds great. We haven't heard of it before.
Yeah.
But no, it means hello in his native language.
Thank you for the clarification, Richard. Yes,
Thank you very much.
We just fell into that trap again, didn't we? Thinking it was another car that we were unfamiliar with.
Absolutely. Thomas, welcome, and good evening to you.
Yes. So I've got an image I want to pop up. Someone commented that one of the reasons that they became interested in Tesla was, and to invest in the company, was because of the many S-curves which were brought to his attention. They are into a number of things that most car companies are not. For example, let me get my, the image is up there. Of course, electric vehicles is the obvious one. Full self-driving, robo-taxi, energy, that's a whole nother with the stationary batteries and you know the conversion with homes and solar. And then the most recent one, artificial intelligence and robots. You know, you don't find that the legacy auto manufacturers branch out that far. And he's not even mentioning SpaceX and Neuralink and the Boring Company, you know, and some of these other things. So
even Twitter and social media.
Right, and now Twitter, that's right, yeah.
That's, have you ever thought about you know, we've got this whole new revolution in AI going on with ChatGPT and GPT-4 and Facebook has come out with theirs and, you know, and everybody's coming out with this. Combine GPT-4 with the robotics that Tesla's putting together. What are we going to end up with?
Well, it's intimidating, isn't it?
It's very intimidating.
Yeah. And being a tech guy, I'm enjoying the proliferation of new technical things that are coming along. So that's probably what's keeping me sane. But I think the average person probably feels pretty threatened by some of these things. You know, for example, these AI entities, or whatever you would call them, are able to pass the bar exam.
Yeah.
Without ever spending one day in a classroom, you know?
Yeah, and I've heard that GPT-4 actually would pass with a grade that would be equivalent to the top 10% of all people who pass the bar.
Is that right? Yeah. And then there's that little cute cartoon. You guys will have to help me. I'm not a pop culture expert here. But so this kid's in school, right? And he's complaining to his friend, you know, my crush just doesn't understand me. And she texts me all the time, and I have no idea what to say to develop the relationship, you know? And he says, oh, well, don't even try. You're no good at this stuff. We're no good at this stuff. Use ChatGPT. So he does. And suddenly the relationship blossoms because he's saying all the right things, you know? So there are a lot of applications, and, you know, it seems like within just the last 60 days or so, there's been a serious explosion with artificial intelligence. The posts, the successes. There was a 60 Minutes actually 2 weeks ago that talked about this rogue AI that apparently no longer stayed, as a Microsoft expert put it, within the guardrails. And began to you know, try to develop a relationship with the human. And yeah, where this is going to be fascinating.
It is going to be fascinating, and I know we're off on a tangent a little bit, but
yeah.
Even at that, I heard just this week, universities, human resource departments, places that get information, questions answered from people, they're suddenly seeing an awful lot of their questions be answered with a very similar writing style across the board from all kinds of different people.
It's akin to doing a book review back when I was in high school, and what you did was you took the information off the back of the book, you know, the review.
Yes.
But, you know, there was even, in fact, Jesse was telling me about this, a photographer was concerned that her job may be in jeopardy because now you can actually, by getting 10 pictures of an individual, different clothing each time, and you can probably chime in here, Jesse, because you got some information about this, and you end up with a photo shoot, different poses, and it's the same person's face, and extremely well done.
Wow.
Using AI, of course, and this is just the first beta version, the first generation. So there will be, you know, functions and industries that are going to be replaced.
It'll be an interesting ride to see, most definitely.
Yeah, the website, I'm going to pull it up here, is called tryitonai.com.
Yeah.
This website essentially allows you to, like you said, submit 10 pictures, and then it uses its proprietary system to create professional headshots for you. And there are people using this for their LinkedIn profiles, for their resumes, all that kind of stuff. But this is just one of, like Mark said, you know, there's infinite applications for AI. What I'm interested in, personally, for AI is seeing the future where I think we're still probably 10, 20 years away, but imagine just getting out of your house and getting into a car, not your car, a car, and it'll drive you wherever you need to go at 150 miles an hour. And every other car is going just as fast, and they're all controlled by AI. And we have virtually no car crashes. We have inductive coupling in the roads. That's the future that I want. So
No more accidents, yes.
That would be nice.
There you go. There's another whole cottage industry going away. Body shops, paint and body. What's the point?
Yeah.
No more accidents.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time to live, and we just have to be able to integrate these types of changes. There was an article this week, again, regarding Tesla's revolutionary Model Y battery pack. And the article said it has a major flaw in that it means it has zero repairability after a collision, according to an auto expert, Sandy Munro. By the way, Sandy's going to be joining us April 6th. So mark your calendars. We're going to be doing a Zoom call or some sort of a virtual connection, and he will be on our podcast. We're looking forward to that. We get asked many times throughout the week, what is our opinion on this? Are these packs really not repairable? Well, to put this in perspective, Sandy Munro's organization is a teardown specialist. They don't repair the stuff after they tear it down or do a deep dive to reverse engineer the electronics and how it functions and how it operates. They certainly do a great job with the bill of materials, costing, and those types of things. We, on the other hand, have to figure out how to fix this stuff in the independent space, because that's our mission, is to repair versus just simply replace. So the way that we're weighing in on this is until we get one of these structural battery packs.
I'm pulling up a picture.
Yeah, and we're given a chance to actually attempt a repair on this and do our own reverse engineering. We're not sold on the fact that this is not repairable. Let me give you just a few examples here. They struggled tremendously with trying to get the lid off of this pack because this pink stuff is like a bonding compound. It's like epoxy, it's like glue, right?
Okay.
Well, we have similar Tesla products that are like this, and we have a combination of ways to open it up. One of them includes heat. And so that I don't think was tried with this particular pack. The other thing is the repairability. Now you have a number of cells that are encapsulated in this potting compound. And let me show you something. I still have this from our Tesla Roadster podcast. This is a Tesla Roadster DC to DC converter that sits inside that 1,000-pound battery pack. And we have to repair this because this has been out of production now since 2008. It's the only way to keep the cars alive. And if you notice all this gray stuff, this is potting compound. It's there as a thermal potting barrier to allow the components underneath it to get cooled with the fluid that runs through this cooling jacket. But the problem is there are components underneath this stuff. And in order for us to find and replace them, we have to do an archaeological dig and get down to the bottom of this circuit board in order to fix and repair this. So this whole notion of figuring out ways to repair things that on the surface don't look repairable is in our wheelhouse. That's what we do. The other thing that we found is that with a battery pack like this that has a thermal potting compound, there are ways to dissolve that. Even the Tesla Roadster body, for example, which is aluminum, is held together with a combination of hardware, rivets and glue. There's a pink epoxy, I think it's red or orange epoxy,
Okay.
that holds the aluminum together, and this stuff is stronger than the aluminum. Oftentimes we'll see collision damage cars, and the aluminum is ripped, but the epoxy survived. Well, there is a chemical that dissolves that epoxy. There's also a chemical that dissolves the potting compound inside the Roadster battery sheets, which have a epoxy-type potting compound that, again, distributes or helps with cooling. So I guess the bottom line is we're not convinced that these aren't repairable. It's just that no one at this point has figured out yet how to do it. And we're going to be one of the companies that is going to do that.
Well, it seems like when we had the Tesla Roadsters first coming in, a lot of the same types of conversations were taking place. a Tesla Roadster battery goes bad. Well, the Roadster battery is not repairable, so you can't do it. And we said, well, maybe we can't, but maybe we can. And I think having the same attitude with this battery is the wise route to go. Until we see it and understand it, we don't know that we can't.
What we also don't know is how Tesla repairs these. I can't imagine that when a Model Y shows up at a service center and the battery is deemed to be defective, at the service centers they don't repair batteries inside or what's wrong inside.
Right.
They take that pack out, they replace it, and they ship it back to Lathrop, California. And that's their remanufacturing center. So, and of course, Tesla's not going to openly share that in the market at this point, how they do that, because they would, create an immediate layer of competition. But yeah.
I have Elon's answer to this. He answered this last summer too about, because the other concern with these packs is that they're not recyclable either. So let me pull this up for you.
Sure.
Mark, I don't know if you can see this, if you want to read it. Can you see that?
Yes.
So read the Alex one.
So Alex says, to those DMing me about how Tesla's 4680 structural pack is non-recyclable or of low recyclability, I believe you're incorrect. The battery pack seems to be designed for easy large-scale recycling of active materials via the bottom of the pack, not via the top cover. And then Elon replies, says, no problem to recycle the 4680 pack. Just think of any battery pack as a super high-grade ore. It's always better to start with high-grade ore than low-grade.
Interesting. And then, of course, the final thing with these battery packs is you have a number of cells inside these packs. You also have software. It's called BSM, Battery Safety Management Software, that knows what every cell and brick is doing, what the voltage levels are, and that also helps diagnose where the areas of problem are in that battery pack. And once that's been isolated, then a repair could be effected by either dissolving the potting compound around it or doing an excavation like we do with these DC to DC converters and either replacing or taking that cell out of circuit. So anyway, I guess the point here being is until we see it, we're not convinced that it can't be done. In the meantime, though, they say insurance companies are forced to do write-offs, even with low-mileage EVs, raising insurance premiums in the process. And then the claim is made in the article, oftentimes these batteries pile up in scrap yards, which is not true. There's a responsible recycling that takes place with these batteries. And that it's a deterrent to someone going electric. Again, don't agree with that either. So anyway, there will be a lot more on this topic, I'm sure, as we continue. And at this point, we have not seen one show up in our shop yet. And I'm sure that at some point we'll have a collision damaged car or something that we can start sinking our teeth into.
I think so. You know, I also see how they generalized. They start with the 4680 pack with the compound in the 4680 pack. Then they generalize it to say, well, insurance rates are higher for EVs because battery packs that might not even be unsalvageable are being written off, and and cars are being totaled, and we don't know why, and it's all bad. We know that we can repair a lot of these EV battery packs already. We can repair a lot. We obviously are specializing in Tesla, so the model, we've been into a Model 3 battery pack, we've been into Model S battery packs, we've been into Roadster battery packs. So, yeah, I would hold judgment on this. Things are not always what they seem. I can't imagine that Tesla would have designed a battery pack that wasn't repairable or recyclable for their own people to be able to take care of.
Fully agree. It looks like from TikTok, Vern, welcome Vern. He says insurance companies are telling customers that their EV cars are not repairable, even though they have only minor damage. And that's what this article said as well.
Yeah, I can't disagree that the insurance companies may be doing that. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the insurance industry because they don't understand the EVs very well. Their understanding is rapidly evolving and getting better, and the rates, once they understand the risk that they're taking on, rates are being adjusted appropriately. But I know even we at Gruber, when we were early on, we picked up some Model S's that were quote unquote totaled, only to drive them off the transport truck when they got here.
Right.
And they were actually fine except for needing a little bit of cleanup.
And, the insurance companies, the appraisers always err on the side of caution because they assume huge liability if they were to allow a vehicle that would later on perhaps fail and cause an accident
Yep.
to, it just creates too much of a liability. So it's much safer and easier for them to total that vehicle and let the insurance premiums continue to increase, for now anyway. There's also a training issue. The appraisers they've had decades of experience appraising ICE vehicle type damage. This is new to them.
Right. And what they don't know, basically they fear, and they price that fear into the rates. OCD Auto from TikTok has added a question as well. Does Tesla Toolbox perform a scan report?
Well, you're probably as familiar with this as I am, the software.
Yes, the Tesla Toolbox 3 is the one that's out there now. It's more well known, and in fact, I think Toolbox 2 has been retired. The car becomes the scanning tool as opposed to having an OBD2 scanner. So the very short answer is yes, the Toolbox does perform the scan reports and gives you detailed information about what's going on in the car, what's going on throughout the CAN bus, and what type of errors there are in the vehicle. Toolbox 3 is like the better or best-in-class OBD2 tools in that it oftentimes will send you to web links that tell you procedures on things that you need to do to fix the problems that it finds as well. Mm-hmm. That's been a great help to us at Gruber. And Toolbox 3, if I understand correctly, is something that can be licensed pretty much by anybody. You simply pay the subscription fee and you're able to get it. So please keep those questions coming. Thank you, OCD Auto, for your question.
So the 4680 battery has actually been around since 2020, it turns out, and it was released during Battery Day, and then a number of companies jumped on the bandwagon and began producing them. Panasonic, LG, Samsung, EVE, CATL, and BAK, and other battery companies have followed suit, making this new revolutionary cell. The 4680 is expected to become Tesla's main battery cell and drive the development of related industrial chains. We know that it's going to be used in the Cybertruck. It's already being used in a Model Y. And it looks like somebody is giving us a cost on the Toolbox software. It is now $500 a month. OCD Auto is sharing that with us.
Thank you, OCD Auto.
There's another way to do this, which is to go back into the CAN bus world and to develop your own GUI software, but it's extremely expensive. That $500 a month, if you're in the business, is a bargain.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So I've got an interesting news item for you here, and it turns out that Lamborghini's CEO has announced that there will be no more ICE vehicles produced past 2024.
Wow.
There are a lot of car manufacturers out there, and I personally would like to see all of them convert to EVs and get rid of the ICE vehicle and the emission type transport. But you know what? Lamborghini, and I know it may sound sacrilegious, but I think Lamborghini should be left out of this equation. They have such a strong brand, such a strong presence, and there's an experience that goes with the cars, not only visual, but the sound of a 12-cylinder engine winding out. And it almost seems that is one vehicle on the planet that should remain ICE. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack having said this.
Well, yeah, honestly, the one counterpoint that I think I can say, if I'm driving a $2.2 million Lamborghini Hurricane and I pull up to the stoplight and some lady in her $100,000 grocery getter can beat me off the stoplight, I'm going to be jealous.
Yeah, and that's probably going to motivate the manufacturer to jump on a bandwagon and get some of that raw power that is available with EVs. But yeah, I was shocked and a bit nostalgic and disappointed that this was going on. But past 2024, they say that that they're going to stop making any kind of ICE vehicles. They already have a drivetrain in mind, and the article here says, while the world of consumer vehicles has quickly pivoted toward EVs, the same cannot be said about the market of vehicles for the ultra-rich. Supercars and hypercars remain an ICE-dominated marketplace at this point, although you're starting to see some hybrids now too, you know.
Yeah.
But they are expecting to reveal the car by the end of this month. What will this EV be called? What will it look like? Now, for those of you that are Lamborghini experts, the names of the Lamborghini vehicles are usually named after famous bulls from the bullfighting ring, the Aventador, the Huracan, you know. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of a name they came up with. But if you're trying to figure it out ahead of time, just look at some of the famous bullfighting bulls that, and you may be able to guess that name.
Now the LB744, which is the one that's going to eventually replace the Aventador, it's going to be a plug-in electric hybrid for the next 4 years. So they are still going to have a V12 in it. It's that V12 is still going to produce about 800 horsepower, so it's still a big beefy motor, but they're pairing that with a tri-motor or a 3 electric motor system to produce overall over 1,000 horsepower. Now by 2028, they're talking about moving away from the PHEV space with the Huracan replacement as well as the Aventador replacement and moving straight to the full electric battery.
So we'll still get the sound for a while.
For a couple of years, we'll still get the sound, and I hope that they don't get rid of the sound.
Yeah. Well, before you get too excited about this new Lamborghini coming out, the 100% EV, apparently it will have an 18-month waiting list. So don't get your hopes up too quickly, they say. By the way, the president and CEO of Lamborghini these days is Stefan Winkelmann, and he's the one that was announcing this. So it'll be interesting to see how Lamborghini, or what they come up with.
Definitely will be. You know, the Urus, U-R-U-S, I was really surprised to see pictures of that. It looks like your grocery getter SUV. It has 4 doors, it's a hatchback, but it's got that, you know, cool Lamborghini horse in the front, and it is basically a supercar with 4 doors.
It's a bull in the front. Ferrari's got the horse, by the way.
Yes.
I know that the purists were going to catch that.
Yes.
And it's also going to be interesting to see what Ferrari does. You know, they're all going to have to pivot. They're all going to have to change.
They definitely are. Car and Drone on YouTube is commenting to us about the Lamborghini. It'll be okay. Vintage racing is just going to get that much more interesting.
Good point. Yeah.
Very good point. On TikTok, Wonderful asks, will you be expanding your services beyond Tesla? It seems that you've developed a unique expertise applicable to other EVs. Why don't you answer that one?
We're very busy with Tesla at this point, but we had our first non-Tesla EV vendor come to us a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn, asking whether we would entertain working on their vehicles. And it's what we've predicted all along. The other EV producers are going to have a tough time building their service delivery systems quickly enough to accommodate their production goals. They're going to outsource. And the problem they're facing now is there are very few companies that they can outsource to, because there's so few of us out here in the independent space that have the broad range of expertise to work on these EVs. Eventually, yes, we will be working on some of these other EV brands, but for now, we're 100% Tesla and mostly Tesla Roadster.
Yep. Multicamzilla is joining us again, and good morning and welcome. He's got a question. What do you guys think about the right to repair class action lawsuit against Tesla's monopoly on service? He says, I've had problems with Tesla service, and it would be nice to have other options.
Well, yeah, I saw the article and I saw the at least the beginnings of that lawsuit, and my personal feeling is Tesla is not attempting to create a monopoly. They have the market. They have more demand than they can produce. So it is not like in other industries, and believe me, we are in the critical power space. There is a lot of dirty tricks being played in the critical power space to prevent competition. Even going as far as creating padlock software, which is proprietary, and their willingness to litigate immediately if you create anything similar to what they have. We don't find that the EV space has that kind of myopic thinking or that kind of those types of dirty tricks. So I don't think Tesla's intention is to limit parts. I think that there are certain types of parts that they have to be very careful about releasing because of liability, and it gets into the high voltage areas of their cars. And then you have the software issues. You know, the vulnerability with EVs that are directly linked outside the car to a server, to some other software source, you can probably speak to this as well, creates enormous liabilities. And the use for, or the opportunity for abuse from terrorists, for example. We've talked about this. What if you take control of a vehicle that you can remotely get into? It's on the freeway and you want to raise some carnage and do some damage. You could essentially take control of the vehicle and have that plow head into some other vehicles.
Well, you know, we're going to have something, time permitting, a little bit later where we see these Teslas all acting in a large parking lot in a synchronized manner. And that just totally proves your point.
Yeah. So my take on the lawsuit is you can generate a lawsuit out of nothing. And you know, and it's a class action, I believe. There are people that are angry about the level of service or lack of service that Tesla is able to provide at times. But I think that is the real issue. I don't think there is a parts issue or an unwillingness to share parts. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think the idea of the class action lawsuit is going to be kind of murky and hard to prove. The fact that Tesla does publish its Toolbox software on a subscription for anybody to be able to use is going to be a fairly strong defense for Tesla in that area. I realize that Tesla tries to limit part sales specifically to people who have Tesla motor vehicles, and they do VIN verification in order to get that. What we've seen in our shop, however, is if we give Tesla the VIN vehicle and we get the permission from the owner to get the parts for that VIN numbered vehicle, Tesla has had no problem selling parts to us.
Sure. Not only have they not had a problem, but they've been supportive. And again, getting back to the critical power world, the dirty tricks I was talking about, we have service agreements all over the United States. A service agreement on a UPS system is in a critical portion of a data center that keeps a bank up and running, that keeps a co-location up and running. Google, you know, Facebook, those large data centers. And we had a large banking system that went down a couple, 3 years ago or so.
Right.
And the manufacturer was the only one that had this proprietary part. So we attempted to purchase the part from them to get this bank up and running, and we started getting delays, and they started dragging their feet, and we couldn't reach them. And they played all kinds of games, knowing that the more time that went by, the less that customer is going to see us as a viable service resource. And they eventually came back to us and they said, look, since it's taken days and we still don't have a part, we can't be down. Uptime is far more important than the savings that we realized when we went with your company for service. We're going to go back to the OEM. And you know what? The OEM knew that was going to happen.
Yes.
And that's exactly the type of dirty tricks I'm talking about. Tesla doesn't do any of that. When we need a part, and we contact Tesla. They tell us up front, we have it, we don't, here's the lead time, here, you know, there are no dirty tricks. We had another vendor, and I'm on a rant here, a critical power vendor. And you would recognize this name if I gave it to you, but I won't. Here was their typical strategy. When we had a down piece of equipment and we didn't have that particular proprietary part, and we have some parts in stock, by the way, the conversation went something like this. Yeah, we have the part. Okay, fine. How much? And they had some extremely bloated retail price, right? Well, we needed the part. We had to pay the premium to get the part. Then we said, okay, fine. And they said, well, but there's a 2-week lead time unless you're willing to pay an expedite fee.
Right.
And of course, the expedite fee added another 50% to the already bloated price. That's the kind of business practices that need to be banned and outlawed, and some legislation to prevent that from happening. I assure you that none of this has been happening in the EV space. It certainly never happens with Tesla. They're very cooperative, and so anyway, we enjoy working in the EV space. It's a different market, and the competition aspect is downplayed tremendously.
Yeah, I think the right to repair angle for this particular lawsuit is going to have a hard time being successful. The closest analogy I can think of is John Deere tractors, where the John Deere trying to implement their own software and their own technicians and prevent farmers from repairing their own tractors, and there's a little bit of apples and oranges there, but in the approach. Tesla, a lot of times they're just not really good at having their parts in stock. Unfortunately, they're a new company that's trying to go through new company things. You know, you go back to 2003, it's 2023 now, and there is no Tesla. So,
and there's supply chain problems. You may have a spike in a particular part, and then it turns out that the vendor you're used to getting it from with a particular lead time has changed because of all the supply chain issues we've had over the last 2 or 3 years, and it rolls downhill. So yeah, I don't buy the fact that Tesla is doing anything nefarious, but again, attorneys being what they are can certainly make a case, and that's what's happening.
I think there is a case to be made, but I don't think it's going to be successful. So to follow up with Multicamzilla,
there's one more from him, actually.
He says that I feel like they should begin to outsource out of warranty repairs because they're more time consuming and they're going to be swamped with all the new cars they're selling. Multicamzilla, I think you make a valid point. That's part of the reason why we exist, actually.
Exactly.
So,
us and other companies, you know, what we do, although we still think we're the largest global independent EV repair shop, but that will change. Within the next 5 years, our type of operation will be ubiquitous. It will proliferate. That's where auto repair is going to be done.
And Tesla does refer us, right?
They do, yes.
Yes. Yeah. TikTok, Hot Rail Rose has a question for you, Pete. It says, Pete, do you know where reliable Model S batteries can be purchased besides eBay or EV West?
You know, we buy modules, and we have vendors that are actually able to read the calculated amp hour capacity and give us specifications so that we can match as carefully as possible. If you're buying something on eBay, more than likely it's going to be somebody that is not technical, that happened to have come across a collision damaged car and that wants to sell that 1,200-pound battery pack, or may have gone a step further, opened up the pack themselves, and they're trying to sell the modules for solar applications, for golf cart conversions, you name it. There's a short list of sources that we have that are technical enough to be able to do the deep dive into the quality and condition of those modules. And I believe EV West, by the way, is one of those. So Tony Williams, by the way, may be a good shot for you.
Yeah, I don't know of a lot of other places besides those. OCD Auto has come back to us on TikTok again with another question. Do you think the possibility exists for a solar roof to extend the range of an EV?
Certainly for charging.
Most definitely. We just have within the last couple of weeks article on the electric vehicle that will be able to charge up to 40 miles a day via its integrated solar. And it's sitting on both the hood and the roof of the car. I don't, the make of the car just escapes me right now. Jesse, or
Was that the
Aptera was one.
was that the Aptera?
Sono was another, a German company, Sono. And then there was another company, I think Denmark. It was in the last podcast. There are EV manufacturers out there, though, that are beginning to utilize a solar application on the car to provide a charge. And Aptera, I think, is the most aggressive in that group of three that we mentioned, in that they have a 40-mile range.
Yeah.
Just on solar. So if your commute is less than 40 each day, you never have to charge. I mean, charge with a cable. You're going to have to leave it out in the sun. Yes.
Lhend671 on TikTok has added a comment as well. A report has come out that the EV batteries are not surviving crashes, especially Tesla. Rising insurance is an issue. I think that's very similar to what we were talking about earlier. There's definitely a risk, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the EV space from the insurance companies, and they're writing off batteries that really might even be repairable, just that there are so few people out there who know how to repair them.
Sure. And we've seen examples of, a ding or a dent in the battery tub. The car gets totaled because the insurance adjuster does not know what's inside that pack, what the clearance from that ding to a vital component is, and they err on the side of caution. They have to. If that car were to have an issue later on, there would be a massive lawsuit with the occupants in the car if they were injured in some way.
You know, I've seen it firsthand with our own business insurance. When the insurance company doesn't know what it is that we do, and we don't have a great way to explain to them what it is that we do in a way that they understand, they just kind of throw up their hands and say, okay, this is a risk that I don't know about, so you're going to pay.
And it will eventually settle. You know, these adjusters are going to be, they're going to get better training in the future. And of course, the technology, the battery technology, continues to evolve and change.
Yes, most definitely. Finally, Multicamzilla has made one other comment. We need someone like you in Los Angeles badly. Thank you again, Multicamzilla.
Yes, thank you.
So,
and the question we get asked constantly is, are we going to scale what we do? There are a number of reasons that we don't right now, but the primary one is lack of manpower. There are very few skilled people out there that can do the type of work that we do. That will change, of course, as this becomes a much larger industry. But for now, at least, we have no options. There aren't any universities cranking out people skilled in what we do. We can't go to Tommy's auto shop down the road here and find a mechanic there because they come in, they have no idea what to do with EVs. And the same is true with dealers. We can't poach anybody from dealerships because they're not trained on the type of work that we do.
right. So thank you guys for all the questions. Please keep them coming.
So here's another news item. Tesla's full self-driving faces wide scrutiny over safety issues, but our analysts say it's 18 times safer than an ICE car. And here's some statistics. The Tesla full self-driving equipped cars had an accident rate of 1 in 3.2 million miles. Hang on to that statistic. The nationwide average for ICE accidents was 1 in 500,000 miles. So substantially higher rate of accidents. And that's probably because human drivers were involved?
I think so. I think so. You know, there's a lot of excitement about full self-driving going on right now because it was just announced yesterday, I think, or within the last couple of days, that version 11 is starting to roll out.
It is. Okay.
So 400,000 people, Tesla owners and drivers that have full self-driving, the full self-driving subscription are going to start to see the beta 11, they still consider it beta software, rolling out to their cars. One of the things they're most excited about is that the autopilot, which specializes in highway driving, and FSD, which specializes in city driving, are going to be combined into one stack and one piece of software.
Very cool. You know, I was driving to work the other morning, and I chuckled to myself. I'm sitting there, and I see this often now. People have this massive car length between them and the car in front of them. I mean, we're talking about 4 or 5 cars, and we're sitting at a red light. And I look over at them, are they asleep? What happened? And suddenly the other morning it came to me, and I said, maybe legalizing marijuana wasn't such a good idea. All right, so Porsche is going public this fall. And its IPO, initial public offering, looks to be the largest in German history. Apparently, Volkswagen owns Porsche. It's actually Porsche, by the way, but here in this country we sometimes say Porsche. And it'll be quite an event, apparently. There's some numbers here, how many billions and all that, but I'm not going to bore you with that. But, and there's also, in this particular article, no reason given why they're deciding to go public. But it looks like it was anticipated, it's well overdue, and it may happen this fall.
I think that's an exciting thing going on there. I know that Porsche has been owned by Volkswagen for a long time. They put out a great line of cars. The line has been gaining in popularity pretty rapidly. I think my biggest surprise is that I didn't realize that they were privately held still.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one that's worth keeping a watch on.
And they make some awesome EVs. The Taycan has all kinds of, public reviews. It's highly thought of.
All right, guys, we're at 56 minutes.
Okay. It also makes me think, okay, VW owns Porsche. They've got an awesome lineup of EVs. VW is putting out their own lineup of electric vehicles. VW is working with Chinese automakers. Sono is one that we were talking about just this last podcast, putting out new technologies, the sodium-ion battery as opposed to lithium-ion. I would watch out for VW as far as quality of EVs that are coming out. I'll bet they're going to be a major player, and they're going to be putting out quality products.
And we were all curious as to how these incumbents were going to switch from ICE production to EV production. Mm-hmm. But some of them seem to have been doing quite well with it and able to accommodate the huge capital expenditures to change production lines and change the skills of the people and all of that.
Yep.
So it looks like Tesla Model Y was Norway's best-selling car in February of this year. The Norwegians have traditionally embraced alternative transportation, sustainable transportation, and there's definitely a large faction of EVs in Norway, and I think it's the largest in the world per capita.
Okay.
So it doesn't surprise me, but it looks like the Model Y was the front runner, and it'd be, I'm assuming that these might have come from Giga Berlin, which is fairly close.
That is, that's fascinating to me as well, because for us in the U.S., to get your basic geography lesson, Norway is on a latitude north of the continental United States. Mm-hmm. In fact, the northern parts of Norway are probably equivalent to the south central part of Alaska. That's a quick way of saying it's cold up there.
Yeah.
And people here in the United States talk about, oh, you can't drive an EV in the cold. Mm-hmm. I beg to differ. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If Norwegians have figured out the EV enough that the Model Y has become their best-selling vehicle, I'm pretty comfortable saying that they're getting over the range anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And this is in a Four Seasons area too, which is pretty harsh for some EVs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like we have a YouTube question from Edward Crump. He says, how long will battery cooling systems last, piping, etc., over the long haul? Well, in the type of work that we do with the Teslas, the Model S, for example, and the Roadster, the cooling systems in these vehicles are for battery thermal management, and you don't have the intense heat that you do in an ICE vehicle.
Right.
You don't have the large radiator space, and I don't think that we have had cooling system issues in a Roadster, come to think of it, mm-hmm. which in the front they have a condenser, and there are hood vanes that have an opening, And in a very wet climate, what ends up happening is there's a lot of water that gets into the condenser, and you eventually get leaves and twigs and things, which then create some acidic environment as they rot or as they deteriorate. And we actually had one that had aluminum in the condenser that had been compromised and began to leak. But generally, we do not see problems in the cooling systems on these electric vehicles. It's a closed loop system. If anything, you lose an occasional pump, but it's not in harm's way. It's not out in the open. It's fairly contained, and again, a closed loop system.
So what it sounds like I hear you saying is that these cooling systems are probably going to last, in general, longer than the equivalent cooling systems in ICE vehicles.
Totally, and probably last longer than a battery pack.
Very interesting, very interesting. OCD Auto has made one more comment. I know we're getting close to time here, so we want to get through the last of these. I'm a shop owner that's getting into PCB repairs and eeprom work. I need training.
Let me tell you the best way to get that. You're not going to be able to take existing people and then train them on how to do component level troubleshooting because it requires a deep electronics knowledge. You need to know what all the components are, how they interplay, what they do, and the test equipment necessary to check them, verify them. So what I would recommend is hire somebody. Hire somebody that has a double E, that is familiar with working on electronics, and sadly enough, it's from another generation. What you're looking for is an old TV repairman. These are people that used to troubleshoot down to component level. They know how to use soldering equipment. They know how to use all of the test equipment. And you're going to want to combine that with somebody that is used to working on circuit boards because the degree of miniaturization now is such that some of this work has to take place under a microscope. You have surface mount components and chips that are very difficult to remove with the traditional soldering gun. So that's part of what we were talking about earlier. It requires a very definite set of skills that do not typically reside in the individual that's been wrenching for 30 years.
What we have found at Gruber Motors is getting a combination of the electrical engineering type guys and the mechanic type guys and having them work side by side has been very successful.
And then you throw in software to boot. You've got 3 skills.
That's right, and we literally have software guys that have come in to help out. Our corporate system administrator, myself as a technology background guy, have gone in and helped out with the software as well.
So TikTok, Elhen71 says, truckers are angry that one day they may be replaced with autonomous technology. Well, there are a lot of people that are going to be angry because a lot of functions that we currently take for granted that only humans can do will be replaced.
By all means, you know, that type of anger is what we've seen in the 70s and 80s as robotics began to take over the auto assembly lines. Car and Drone on YouTube also talks about the Porsche.
Yeah, I'm pulling up a picture of that.
The Porche Gt4e, and little heart symbols. What a sweet little electric car that one is.
Right. Juliana from Automotive Woman has joined us, and she is watching. She was actually out here a couple of months ago and did a couple of videos on a T0 and Tesla number 5, Roadster number 5. If you're interested, she has a YouTube channel, and she does reviews, kind of like Supercar Blondie, except she knows how to drive these cars.
On TikTok, we have Hello from Norway. It says 80% of all new cars sold in Norway are electric.
Are electric. Amazing.
That's amazing. That's so great to hear. Welcome and good afternoon to you.
Quick news item. It looks like Tesla posted record profits in Q4 of last year. $3.7 billion. And this was during a quarter, I believe, when they were starting to do some price reductions on vehicles.
They were. They had supply chain issues. They had price reductions. They had huge expectations from analysts that ended up going unmet, and yet they still posted record profits. In fact, they kept their gross profit margin above 25%. All throughout 2022, and that 3.7 billion in Q4 It's not like that was their only profitable quarter either.
Right.
You know, for the year, they had $12.6 billion in profit for 2022. So no more of getting your profits by selling your carbon credits.
Right. So I think Jesse has something for us here today.
Yeah, real quick, let me pull up this video though of Elon doing his little dance for the article for 3.7 billion in profit.
And then he starts swatting a drone.
I think that might actually be different footage here, but let me pull up this one. Now, I didn't get the number on how many cars are in this video, and we can't play the audio because it will potentially get us claimed for copyright stuff.
Oh, right,
but
okay.
we can show this video itself of all these cars syncing up using the light show feature, which is built into the Teslas. This has to be 100 cars or something. There's a lot. You can see there's multiple rows of cars all the way back. And this person on Twitter, actually, their whole channel is Tesla light shows, and they take their car into unique areas and play songs based on that. And they have a whole social media based on this light show feature.
I think this will be a new Tesla meetup trend, is for everybody to synchronize their cars to a light show. And by the way, we have a screen here that we can pop up that shows you how to time the light show on your vehicle. And of course, if everybody synchronizes their start time, then you get an effect like this where all the cars are doing the same thing. Now, Jesse, what was the music? You're mentioning that had something significant.
Yeah, the reason we can't play that, this song, according to the Post, just won the Oscar for Best Song at the Academy Awards last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. But very popular song. All these people downloaded it to this light show, and they used this timing function to sync it all up. There were some people asking, how did they accomplish this? And apparently this is just one of those things that Elon put in there just for fun. And actually on the Post itself, Elon double-hearted it. So he's paying attention to even the smaller creators using some of those Easter egg features.
I think that's a really, really cool thing. And like we were talking about earlier in this podcast with the AI and how everything is going, it's just a little bit frightening. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got, you've now have seen a demonstration of 200 or over 100 cars working in perfect synchronization together, just to do something like play to a little song. But it was really amazing to see.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to have our Tesla Roadster podcast tomorrow at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We started that 2 weeks ago. This will be our third Roadster-specific podcast. And what we're doing is inviting the Roadster community to join us, express their concerns, ask questions, tell us their stories about their car. We have our first Roadster guest speaker as well, who will be joining us not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. We've had him on our podcast before. His name is Jameson Cummings. He was the first Roadster, the first Tesla technician, not just Roadster, but the first Tesla technician. And anyway, he has all kinds of interesting stories to tell. So he will be joining us the following Wednesday at 4 p.m. And even if you don't have a Roadster, if you're interested, feel free to join us. We try to confine the questions to Roadster-specific questions. Unless no Roadster owners show up, then I guess we could broaden that
I guess
as well.
we can. Yes, I guess we can.
But we've had good participation in the last two, so we expect that to be the same. Again, the Tesla Roadster is a niche vehicle. There are only 2,400 built. Our census program on our website indicates that there may be as many as 2,000 left on the planet. And we're paying tribute to the vehicle that basically started the EV revolution.
And Pete, do you want to announce the video that will debut at the end of tomorrow's show?
Yes, we also have a video that deals with Tesla Roadster changes. And without giving away the whole story, it will be in conjunction with the podcast. And we've been doing research on the Roadster battery system now for a couple, 3 months or so. And we're ready to share some information with the community. We have one final comment coming in from OCD Auto. Thank you for the expertise. You're more than welcome. If you have any questions, specific questions, any of you can contact us at ev@gruber.com, and we'll do our best to answer your questions.
Well, thank you again. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow afternoon, and again, same time on Thursday.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.